right, call this meeting for March 27th. Order, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please silence all your cell phones. Take a moment of silent prayer. I'll begin the roll call this morning with myself. Commissioner Culberson is here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Vicki Cause.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
All present and accounted for. Public comment. I have first signed up with David York. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. And you have three minutes or 5 minutes? 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Dave York. I live at 2523 South 23rd Street here in Leavenworth. I'm the pastor of First United Methodist Church across the street. And as a representative of the church, I'm an advocate for those without voice, the poor, the needy, the vulnerable. And it's in this role that I respectfully ask the commissioners to reconsider your decisions on cutting funding for the Alliance Against Family Violence, CASA, Riverside Resources, and St. Vincent's Clinic. It's beneficial to our society when the marginal are helped. For example, victims of domestic sexual assault and violence may have no other options than the Alliance. Last year, they assisted 66 families, but had to turn 61 families away. So where does someone go if they're in that kind of situation and the Alliance, because of their lack of resources, says, well, we can't help you. We just don't have the ability to do that. I know a lot of work was put into the Alliance to get it back and running. When I first got here, it was pretty much defunct. And so continued support from this group would help that. I can't imagine the toll it would take on the police in those kind of settings if nothing was available. It was just this cycle of violence and we come and more violence and we come. Someplace like caring for the sick like St. Vincent's makes our entire society stronger. The public safety is better. Benefits are made to all the people. You know, we believe, as people of the church, we believe that caring for all the citizens in Leavenworth County is everybody's responsibility. It's individuals, it's families, it's churches, and it's also the government's responsibility too. All of us need to take action to make sure the county doesn't suffer from a lack of grace, an absence of grace. Churches and private donations need to continue to be generous. That's part of our responsibility. But the government has a collective responsibility to care for everyone as well. We believe in society that's fair and good and just. And as a person of faith, it's my love for Christ that compels me to act and speak on behalf. As a person of this country, as a citizen, it's an ideal of our nation to establish justice and provide for the well-being of all the people. You've got a tough job. I understand that. You've been called to lead in difficult times. Money's always tight. And I know the small portion of the county budget that goes to these different groups makes a big impact on their lives. For the dollars spent, the impact is probably exponential. And we want a county that cares about everybody who lives here. I believe where your treasure is, your heart's going to be. And so you make choices about where treasure is going to go. Restoring funding would create a sense of mercy and justice for our people. It's a three-legged stool, government, people, and individuals. Let's continue to make it a place where the well-being of all of our citizens are being kept. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. I don't think there's anybody else signed up for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lothar, you have something this morning?
Yeah, Commissioners. Just want to remind everybody that we had originally thought there would be a meeting, announcement on the courthouse tomorrow, but that's been canceled. Senator Moran was going to come out and wanted to do a press announcement that he was able to work and get $2 million of grant funding for the county to go towards the County Road 30 project, but his schedule changed, and so he's not going to be able to do that. But just want to remind everybody of that.
So he's not going to be able to give us $2 million?
No, the $2 million has been allocated for that project. His schedule changed, so he's not able to be in Leavenworth County tomorrow.
Okay. So,
All right. Is that all you had, Mark?
That's all I had.
Any other commissioners have any
I just
administrative?
wanted to ask Mark, County Administrator, got any updates on any legislation being passed or trying to get passed that's going to impact the county, like an unfunded mandate of any type like they usually do?
There are several bills that are out there that the Kansas Association of Counties is obviously watching, as are we. There's one change that, or one legislation that might come out here pretty quick. We'll find out this week, I would think. The ability to exempt certain folks from sales tax on purchases that they make. So it's only a small percentage of our collections. It's we collect 1% sales tax to the county, half is distributed out to the city. So it's not that it won't have an impact. It's just not as impactful as the original legislation, which would have exempted those same folks from property taxes. So I think that one's going to.
And they've never done any kind of impact study on what it's going to do to locals, or they just pass it?
Not that I'm aware of. They typically don't. That's how they operate, Topeka. So
Just add it to the list of other unfunded mandates.
That's the problem. So one thing I noticed out of all the bills they're working on, I didn't see any getting passed that would be significant tax relief. All I saw was several that are going to add to the high tax, property tax problem. The 3 or 4 that we were hoping were going to happen did not happen, and they even put in a couple.
One of them.
They even put in a couple that even makes the high property tax problem worse. So I don't see any positive things done for this session.
Well, I didn't either. That's why I brought it up, because
They
I
kinda
thought
created
maybe I
their-
was missing something.
They're fixed so that they don't have to provide the local ad valorem, and unfortunately, it's been removed for the Social Security benefit for
Yeah. The relief that they could have done
relief for our
pretty easily
seniors. But
didn't pass.
Mr. Chairman, I was
Yes, sir.
going to dovetail on that. The bill they passed in Topeka would reduce the school mill portion of property taxes from 20 to 18 mills. Provides an exemption for the school mill, which is at 40,000 now, up to 100,000, that you could be exempt from the 20 mills, only the 20 mills, and eliminates the 1.5 state mills, which is used to maintain state university campuses, and returns that back to the taxpayers, as well as eliminating LAVTR completely. So I asked the county administrator, he's the numbers man, what would that average taxpayer in Leavenworth County, if these kind of provisions are adopted, what kind of relief would we see?
Well, if you take let's just say $285,000, the average home value in Leavenworth County, which is a little on the low side now, but for the 2 mills that the state would remove from the school, that's about $66, $65 a year. So if they did another 1.5 mills, that would be roughly $48 somewhere in there. So you're talking about $115 maybe.
So your legislators are going to come home for election time, and they're going to be able to say that they reduced property taxes. But we had a bill in Topeka that would have capped property taxes at 4% a year, and that would have been thousands of dollars in benefits for folks that have property taxes. That did not get a vote in the House, and it did not go to the voters. It is not apparently going to go to the voters, but they're going to be able to say that they passed something that reduced property taxes.
$150 a year.
But if we had gotten the LAVTR, I believe that was going to be around
$4 million a year.
Well, for the average household, because the cities and the county both get the LAVTR, you're probably $250 to $300 a year in property tax relief that would have provided immediately. If they would have, and the LAVTR existed, they just needed to fund it according to the legislation, and they haven't for 20-some years.
But the consequence of having not funded it, and with the sales taxes that have been collected, the result has been that county government and city governments have not been able to adjust the mill, accordingly, because that revenue is not being received. And that's what people need to understand. And it's, as I said before, it's two separate funding pools. One is property tax, the other one is sales tax. And the local ad valorem is sales tax. And that's what people need to understand, is there is a difference.
And sales tax is a user fee. I mean, people have to go out and do it. It's not put on them to do it. So that's the best way to come back and bring the funding down. But I don't know what else to say anymore.
And we're getting ready to approve some funding this morning that, the sales tax on tobacco and alcohol and things. I mean, that's, Leavenworth County does our share of purchases of alcohol and tobacco. So, it's a good source of revenue for our county. I mean, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, the bottom line is that we do our share of smoking and drinking in Leavenworth County. So.
And I don't think I've seen one piece of legislation that would have helped these nonprofits here that are asking for money.
It's true.
And that's the level of the government. That's where it needs to come from. So, when they're sitting on $4 billion and they can't give any money toward that.
Billion. It's actually more than $4 billion.
They're more than $4 billion now. And returning that type, the local ad valorem to us would have also given the ability of the local governing bodies to address some of the issues and needs and increase some of the
Exactly,
the
especially when you got a
assistance to
couple state representatives that sit on some of these boards.
Yeah.
I just do not understand how we had a law already on the books that would have given us about $4 million a year to relieve property tax, which is the highest, most important issue right now going on, and they did their best to kill it. I just don't understand that.
The only thing we can do.
It's being vindictive.
We've preached this and we've talked about this, and this
We
county.
talked about it too much, it changed the law.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, Doug. But one of the things I don't know how to get the people, citizens, to really do their homework on this, because the only way this is going to change is when you put new people in office that understand the problem. If you keep electing the same people who really can't stand up for their county and their cities, we're going to see this every year. And this was our best year to have the opportunity to have some of that funding come back and be addressed to needs that this county and cities across the state needed.
Absolutely.
I have a couple other things.
Yes, sir.
The IDD Medicaid waiver is moving through the legislature. We got people on a 5,000 person waiting list, and the position of the House is to fund an additional 500 of those spots, and the position of the Senate is to fund 250. So that is being negotiated, and I think people should realize that you've got special needs folks that are on these lists. Not every state leaves the folks on the list for this amount of time, and when we have this huge surplus, it seems like it would be appropriate time to fund that.
Is that in lieu of not having Medicaid expansion? Is that their compromise?
I don't know. I don't know if they're connected or not.
I think it is, Doug.
I think it is. Another thing, I'd like to just read this, and this will address itself. Dear Senator Gossage and members of the Senate Education Committee, I'm very disappointed with the failure of the Senate Education Committee to take a vote on Senate Bill number 2613, the statewide DARE educator and required statewide education mandate on fentanyl education. I'm personal friends with the Burris family in Leavenworth County that so tragically lost their son Cruz when he consumed a Percocet tablet laced with fentanyl. I was also disappointed that the bill that had already passed out of committee in the House and had passed a floor vote with strong support in the House did not even receive a motion and a second to be voted on in the Senate Education Committee. Actually, I was quite amazed that the bill, which had such strong support and is of such importance for so many, seemed to be so casually brushed aside without explanation. The drug is fast becoming the leading killer of teens in America. While this bill would not have solved every problem related to fentanyl, it would have been a good start to enhancing drug use education in Kansas. I sincerely hope the committee will reconsider their decision to do nothing on enhancing drug education in this manner. And I did talk to Senator Gossage personally. I'm really
Thank you.
upset about this. I think this is, the Burris family took the time to go testify. It passed the House, 111 votes, and the Senate didn't even, in their committee, didn't even vote. And if it had made it to the Senate floor, it would have passed.
I'm sure it would have.
And this
That's
is the way,
unfortunate.
when we did our tornado relief, it was the same type of a thing. It's something that should get through, but politics.
And that's what's happening way too much in our state government. It's awful.
And one last thing on a positive note, I would like to express appreciation to our county attorney. He announced that the backlog of COVID cases has been completed by his office, and that hasn't been done in all the offices across the state. So I'd like to express my appreciation to him.
Thank you.
Anybody else have administrative for this? Not, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. Voting with myself, aye.
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 Consent agenda passes 5-0. Moving on to formal board actions. Consider a motion to approve the recommendation for allocations from the Leavenworth County City's Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council as presented. Come on up.
Good morning.
Pat, how are you?
Today we have Pat Barnhart with us, and as in each year, organizations in the county, throughout the entire county, apply to her and her board for the special alcohol money that comes in to the state. Pat has been instrumental in helping these groups organize events where the money can be spent through prevention. She has been instrumental in keeping the funds very viable in the special alcohol fund. So I really am just going to turn that over to her.
Morning.
Morning, Pat.
I think you have the list in front of you of where we'd like to allocate those funds. I would remind you all that this council was started back in the early 1980s because of the death of a high school student returning from a graduation party that was private and where alcohol had been served. So that's how all of this started, and although we do support those parties, we do also support other entities that do not only prevention, but education about drug and alcohol abuse. And I think the education component is anymore more important almost than the prevention part of it, because people look at things differently now than they did then.
Looks like all the school districts in the county applied, so looks like we got that covered. Glad they did.
And I would like to, if you have a moment, to acknowledge the other people who are on the council.
Please do.
And Laura Thornton, June Foley, Deborah Greger, John and Teresa Groves, and John is with me this morning back there, Bryn Peter, and Emily Shoemaker. We're represented throughout the county, and I would like a particular shout out to Barbara Adolphson, who served for years on this committee with a lot of background in law enforcement and prevention.
Dare
And
officer.
She and her husband moved to Olathe this last fall, so she has resigned from the council.
Yeah, she was a dare officer forever.
Yes.
Yeah, worked with her many times. Great
That
lady.
was great.
Yeah.
Yes, she did, and she was great, and we're going to miss her.
Yes. Yes.
You have a good board.
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
really do.
You really
An
do.
active board,
Yes.
engaged.
And representing the whole
Right.
county.
Absolutely.
That's, I think, important also.
There's not any comments. I make a motion to approve the recommendation for allocations from the Leavenworth County City's Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council as presented.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much, and thank you for the time you put into reviewing the applications.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Board.
I wanted to shout out to John Groves. We go back to the Burt Collard Chevrolet days. How you doing, John?
It's nice to see you, John.
Yeah.
Yep.
John's very active with the education and prevention aspects
I see him on
of drunk
that.
driving
Yeah.
and prevention in our community. So,
Moving on, next formal board action, consider a motion for funding for Riverside Resources.
This was, you mean how, Mark? This was brought up, I brought this up a while back. I made it known that I wanted to review this after last year, after we got into this year. We tabled it because we'd heard our building is falling down. So I still wanted to bring it back up and see if there's anything we can do. Riverside Resources is an agency that has helped people, and it does so much. You know, when I know the money is tight. I really get that. But then again, I looked at a couple things. I looked at the sheriff's grants that he's going to be receiving that we know are going to continue. I also know that most likely we should, if Todd Thompson is caught up, that he made a statement to us that he was going to be letting one or two of his staff go because they're caught up. So with that being said, this is the funding that I would like to see for the $60,000. They asked for 120. I'm asking for 60. One thing I know not everybody sees this like I do, separating government and separating church and separating like that. But when people can work and don't work, that's one thing. We've got people out there, we've got all kind of jobs on this county that people could take a job and they're living off whatever. But when you see people that are trying to benefit themselves on conditions that they were brought into or dealt with, I think it behooves the county commissioners or the state, like Doug said a while ago, to step up and say, listen, we need to help out a little bit. I know times are really tight, but I can't think of any other better way than serving our citizens than in this capacity for $60,000. That's all I have.
So you're going to ask Todd Thompson to give the $60,000?
Well, I was going to look and see if he made that statement to us. I would think that, but I still think it's available when the $400,000 that the sheriff received, and we'll receive 2 more quarterly reports on that.
Well, shouldn't we do this at budget time?
Well, I'm looking at.
No, we did a budget last year, and
I
this
know.
is how it shook out.
I know, and I understand that. I understand that, but I also made it known that I wasn't too happy about that. And if the county commissioners decide they do want to do it this year, that's fine. I hope they come back for next year's budget and talk to us a little bit about this. But I just can't see when people are in need, that should be one of our top priorities. And maybe it's just the way I'm built, Doug, but that's the way I look at it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I had a question for maybe the county administrator. How many years previously, and maybe Riverside Resources could let us know, how many years had the Riverside Resources been funded by the county?
Commissioner, I do not know that off the top of my head, but I know it's been at least, it's been more than 7 years because I've been here for that long. So I would guess long before then.
Vicki?
Y'all know?
They
I
weren't
worked
sworn.
for Riverside Resources for 5
Introduce yourself.
and I've not known a time when we didn't receive.
right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're over 20 years that I know of.
Yeah, absolutely, over 20 years.
So even if they received the $60,000, that was a reduction in the
Half.
increase
They asked for
by
120.
$60,000. So that would still be a major reduction in their amount. I think my personal opinion is when we make sometimes we're doing budgets, and sometimes we overcorrect. I think maybe when we zeroed it out, maybe that was an overcorrection in our budget process, and we're still making a substantial reduction in what we spend, even if we fund the $60,000. And I tend to agree that that it was a mistake, and I think sometimes we have to admit that we made an error. And And I personally agree with the commissioner that we should provide the $60,000, and that's what I support.
So asking Todd Thompson to give it?
Todd Thompson is the only reason Todd Thompson comes into it is because the two positions that we were using for the COVID backlog, those two administrative positions that the county funded and remained in our budget, that's now apparently caught up. So
Well, that's the only place you're going to get it. $60,000 would be an employee's salary.
Well, I think
we'd have to cut an employee.
I think the grant that we received more than covers that, plus allows more of the next couple payments to go back in the general fund. I forgot what the sheriff deputy said, but I know it's a few $100,000 that'll still go back in the general fund that we didn't expect to receive.
So are we going to fund everybody we cut then? That stuff we cut in the budget?
We're not.
That's all going to line up here.
That's not what we're proposing here.
Well,
I have to say, Doug, this one hit me a little different than the other one. So this is my personal one. I'm not saying I'm going to bring anybody else in front of us. This is just me personally asking.
I'm saying they will all be here.
Well, in that case, that's what
You already had the fair board.
Then you deal with-
come in and get money.
So I don't know if we're
You
gonna
deal with
be
one at
able
a
to-
time, and you deal with the prioritization of the spending.
Well, but the problem is, everybody has their own opinion. Nobody wants to be the
Right.
bad guy. When we're getting so tight on the budget, which we've been over the last 30 years, so tight on the budget, we're getting to a point now where, it's like buying groceries. If you can't afford groceries and all your neighbor kids come over to eat all the time, are you going to buy less groceries for your own family, or are you going to tell the neighbor kids they just can't come over to eat anymore?
Well, like we said, there's this monies that has come from the grant from the state. That is A. B, we have the COVID backlog in the county attorney's office has been completed. We have two positions. We could reallocate that money for the remainder of the year, starting May 1st, to go towards the Riverside Resources.
And
$60,000.
even at the county, even Todd's good about discussing this and finding reasons why we should keep it. But even if we came back and we decided not to, we still have that grant funding in front of us. And I really don't want to put this off. I'd like to make a motion, and then we can discuss more, to fund Riverside Resources for $60,000.
Second.
And then we'll
So we have a motion and a second.
Action second.
So for further discussion, I'd like to add that it's not really budget time right now. I think this is something that we need to address when we can talk about everything all at the same time, because like you're talking about, maybe we can get it from the attorney's office or the sheriff's office, but that's the stuff that will churn up in our budget process.
But
Making a
the
motion on this today would be something
need
that-
is immediate. We have cut a hole in this organization's budget, and the need is immediate. It's not that we can wait till budget time.
And once again, we're taking taxpayer money and choosing the taxpayers' charities. You're mandatory asking the taxpayers to donate to this organization.
Which, like I said in the beginning, nobody wants to be the bad guy, but we've kind of made a pact that we are going to, if we have to cut anything, first thing is going to be outside agencies before
And
we
we
cut
sent the letter.
county agencies.
We sent the letter.
You know, we
3
talk
years ago, we sent a letter
we
out
talk
saying-
about the taxpayers
Right.
thing. I think the taxpayers put us in here to make the right decisions on what they think is. And I can't speak for all of them, but I would think most taxpayers would want to see where there's a need like this, they would support that. Now, I can't speak for them.
You might be right, Mike.
But I'm only speaking for myself.
But the
And
flip
I
side of that is
personally
what-
have never agreed to 100% eliminating the outside agencies my entire time on the
I have
commission.
not either, so I'm-
And
You don't think you have a conflict of interest
I-
on this one?
And that's the stuff that'll come up.
I don't
when we
have a
our budget
conflict of
hearing.
You
interest.
said in the last time we discussed it, you had a family member on the waiting list.
On the
That's for the
state,
waiver.
what-
That
that has nothing to do
Right.
with Riverside Resources. It's the IDD waiting list, the state waiting list.
But the other thing,
And I resent that you brought that up, Doug.
Well,
But
you'll have to
Commissioner
resent
Stephen-
it then.
Well, that's
Commissioner Stephen, when you-
completely outside of what should be discussed here.
But Commissioner Stephen, when you talked about it being an emergency right now, the other point to that is we sent letters out 3 years ago saying all these outside agencies need to look for other sources of funding, because It's coming down the pipe. 3 years ago, we told every outside agency, you guys might say you didn't want to cut them, but why did we send the letter out 3 years ago?
I voted no on sending the letter, so.
But my point
If you
is, we
recall, the
sent
letter was a
with-
cautionary letter. It was saying that don't depend on our funding. Don't depend that this money's going to be there.
Okay, but I don't know how else you could read that other than.
I understand what you're saying, Chairman, but really, I think we've beat this to death. I'd like to go one way or the other. I'd like to call for the vote if the chairman would allow it.
Yes, sir. Again, voting with myself, I say nay.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. 3-2.
Or 60,000 for this
Yeah, but it
round,
should've
but
been
we need to
60,000.
revisit all of this at
Yes.
the
I
budget.
think you're going to get a
hearing.
chance to revisit it all, because everybody we cut's going to be in there asking
Not
for
to,
money.
well, there was the cuts,
Yeah.
but there, that's what we're giving is the 60,000
Might as
versus
well
the
have the fair
original.
board come in, Mark, and get that 130,000
Well,
they want.
that's where we need to begin
You know,
to have those discussions
did
at
that-
the budget
did
time.
that,
We need to
uh,
make
Our
some
job is to do what
priorities.
the needs of the county are, and we are not to just tie our hands, and that's
Sometimes that's what
you
it
know.
is. Well, let's move on to the next.
Yeah, I
item.
agree.
Consider a motion to approve the KDOT Cost Share Grant Program Agreement Extension for County Road 30, 230.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Today for your consideration is the approval of the KDOT Cost Share Grant Agreement Extension for County Route 30, 235th Street Improvement Project. This agreement will extend the bidding window of the project into the end of December of 2024 and require the project to be ongoing with reimbursement requests within 6 months, within a 6-month period at the beginning of 2025. This is a 9-month extension of the contract that does expire at the end of this month. They extended this. We knew we were coming up against the deadline on this because of the lack of approval of the federal budget for our congressionally directed spending through Senator Moran's office. KDOT was understanding in that issue that we were having, getting our windows to overlap. And so this provides us a 9-month period to try to get those funds secured, at which point we will need to have bid the project and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the KDOT Cost Share Grant Program Agreement Extension for County Road 30, 235th Street.
I'll second that.
And discussion.
Further discussion?
We going to bid this in December then? Are we going to bid it? We can't bid it till December?
No, we have to bid it by
By
December.
Okay, so it can be bid earlier.
Yeah,
We get everything together, we can make the announcement and put it out for bid.
Yeah, we're going to bid this
ASAP.
as soon as possible
Right.
because the federal government didn't approve the budget for 5 months. I don't know that they extended the window for their spending 5 months, and so it narrowed our opportunity to get those funds spent on this project. More than likely, I don't have a copy of an agreement from anyone yet, but awaiting that, contacted FHWA. But it's my understanding that we'll still have the same deadline to spend the money that we would have had if they had approved the budget in October.
So we need to get,
We're going to be bidding the project.
yep, as soon as possible,
Yeah.
right?
as possible.
Right.
On the move.
Yep, get to moving.
Very good. No further discussion. I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion carried. Next, consider a motion to approve a contract with Ebert Construction for the replacement of Bridge A49 on 211th Street in the amount of $785,369 with a 3.5% contingency.
Commissioners, this structure is located on the northeast corner of the unincorporated area of Jarbelow. The project is one of the last 2 bridges from the 5-bridge design contract with Benish in 2018. The plans were reviewed by Finney and Turnipseed because of the errors that we'd had in some of our previous plans from Benish. Adjustments were made to the plans. They were found to not be done correctly, and we are prepared to bid and build this project. The Commissioners previously had accepted the low bid by Ebert Construction. We had issued a notice to proceed, and we are down to contracting this project and moving forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to approve the contract with Ebert Construction for the replacement of Bridge A49 on 211th Street in the amount of $785,369 with 3.5% contingency.
Second?
Motion and a second. No further discussion. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Next, consider a motion to approve contract with Ebert Construction for the replacement of Bridge T34 on 219th Street in the amount of $765,640 with a 3.5% contingency.
Commissioners, this is the same scenario as the last bridge. Ebert was the low bidder on both projects. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. They may work the bridges concurrently, or they may do one right after the other. We have not received notification of that. I know they have several weeks to wait before they can get their beams in.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a contract with Ebert Construction for the replacement of Bridge T34 and 219th Street in the amount of $765,640 with a 3.5% contingency.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. How much do you think this bridge would have cost 20 years ago?
Oh, boy.
Oh, mercy.
This is almost $1 million. This is almost $1 million. And my point is, by kicking this can down the road, it's cost us way more money.
Yeah,
So,
Oh, absolutely.
that's
probably
all
the same thing going forward, too.
that's my
Since
plug.
I've been here, we should have built
Every bill would-
126
yeah.
bridges, and we built 65.
Exactly right. So that's my plug for the bridge fund.
And this contractor's been doing some bridges in the county, and they've
Yep,
all
they've
turned
done a
out
good
really
job.
well, and no change orders, or just, I think we're
Yep.
lucky they bid on these projects.
I agree. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Next, consider a motion to approve contract with Mega KC Corporation for the replacement of box culverts for bridges SH63, HP29, HP30 in the amount of $1,564,500 with a 3.5% contingency.
Commissioners, these box culverts, two of these are located on Western Eisenhower Road, and they are large precast box culverts that will be set with a crane. We did utilize that construction method to try to reduce the length of the project and provide a shorter window for construction for Eisenhower Road. The third structure is located on 158th on the curve where it turns into Golden Road. Down in the southern portion of the project, or the county, excuse me. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I have not had any personal experience with this contractor, have no knowledge of any issues that they've ever had or their successes.
So this box would have been on that haul route for Call Valley if they had chose to go ahead and do that road?
Yes, I believe it would have been.
Okay.
No further discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve contract with Mega KC Corp. for the replacement of box culverts for bridges SH63, HP29, and HP30 in the amount of $1,564,500 with a 3.5% contingency.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting on myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Next, consider a motion to approve the proposal and fee from Finney and Turnip Seed for construction engineering inspection on Bridge A60 on 215th Street in the amount of $25,254.
Commissioners, today for your consideration is the construction engineering inspection. We did advertise for proposals. We did only receive one proposal. It was a short notice. This project is set to begin in a few weeks. Reese Construction was provided a 8-month window to complete this bridge within, and it's about a 30-day project. Per our bid documents, we allowed for that large window because it is on a gravel road that has very low volume, and we were trying to receive the lowest price possible by providing the largest window we could to accommodate completion within this calendar year. They had originally notified us that they wanted to complete the work in October, and then at some point determined that they wanted to move that all the way up to immediate. So we immediately advertised, and this price is in line with what we have paid for similar type structures for critical point inspections.
Very well. Any other discussion?
Well, it's an old wooden bridge.
I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the proposal and fee from Finney and Turnip Seed for construction engineering inspection on Bridge A60 on 215th Street in the amount of $25,254.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Bill.
Surprised this one lasts as long as it did.
Is that the last wood bridge we had?
I think so.
I know the nails keep popping up. They go down, banging back over about once
I've
a
heard
month.
that, Jeff.
All the neighbors kept saying they get flat tires. Presentation and discussion items. Begin with myself. Didn't really have anything. This had Leavenworth City meeting last night,
They sang.
and they sang.
And they sang.
Yeah,
We got to be serenaded last night.
that's right. Doug, do you have anything?
This is Mid-America Regional Council yesterday. And I got Fairmount Township meeting Thursday night. And is anybody going to Topeka Friday? I'm not. I mean, it's Good
I don't have-
Friday. I don't think I should
I don't have any
celebrate-
plans
I don't
to-
think I should honor Good Friday at the Capitol.
Although they probably need to.
They need to. I don't need to.
Good point, Doug.
I mean, come on.
Don't have anything.
Vicki,
Let's
you have
see.
anything?
Last week I did I had a special meeting for the KCATA, and then the Finance Committee meeting, and then kneecap on Thursday evening, and then I'm getting ready to leave this afternoon for the Transit Authority Board of Directors meeting.
Jeff, I did last Thursday, I did the Meals on Wheels. I can't say enough about the Council on Aging, those folks and volunteers and the paid staff and what they do. When you see those people, when you meet them at the door, it just does your heart good. That's all I have.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to address one thing.
Yes, sir.
I come here to debate issues. I come here to try to do my best for the district I represent. But I do not expect my family to be brought into the discussion or the debates here. And I just want to put that out there, that I feel that was very disrespectful, and I'm not going to tolerate it.
So noted. Mr. Lothry, did we figure out when the work session would be with Planning Commission? Is it April or May? Did they decide?
Yeah, Commissioners may, I sent out the email to you that April, because of their current
Yeah,
agenda
that makes
already,
sense.
they didn't want to make the meeting.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't think it really matters as far as.
May is when we're going to schedule.
But they'll have some things done before then, too, so I didn't think so either, Jeff.
Okay, so May, it's set for May?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. No other.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Voting aye.
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 Motion.
Take a couple minutes.
Meeting
before
is
we go.
adjourned.